Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Joining me is our usual illustrious panel, which is becoming more and more illustrious. We've got Jake, of course. We have Vanilla Latte, and God, so gay. And then Rick. We're gonna we're gonna start this whole thing out.
Would you prefer Sandy Beige 69? Although I would be stealing that from a guest from Ricada Law, so I don't know if I can use that one.
So what we're gonna do here is start out with this Tim Ryan story, the broadcaster from the San Francisco 49ers who made what some people are considering to be very questionable comments. This is what Brian wanted to lead off the show with today, and hey, it's holiday season, so I'm running with it. Brian, tell me, give us the facts of the story.
Okay, he was on a team radio show similar to Cleveland Browns Daily, where it's 49ers heavy discussion radio show, and Tim Ryan went on and was talking about how Lamar Jackson can do these amazing, how he was fooling the 49ers with the ball, helping with the ball fakes, is the fact that he's very dark and he's wearing a black uniform and the wet ball is a dark fudgy brown. So it all kind of blends together. So when he's doing an actual ball fake, he doesn't do the arm fake like a lot of Steve DeBerg or guys of that generation did. He's doing an actual ball fake where he puts the ball directly in front of Mark Ingram, then yanks it out and sprints around the corner of the tackle. So he's saying that because of the skin tone, the uniform color, and the ball being wet and much darker, it's harder to pick up when he's pulling the ball back and running around the tackle. And that little bit of time delay in, okay, I've got Mark Ingram charging at me at full speed. I'm reading the line, and then all of a sudden Lamar Jackson takes off.
And what happened to Tim Ryan?
Tim Ryan was suspended.
For any length of time that we know of?
I did not have that from the article.
I
don't know if that's been updated.
And the reason that they suspended him was?
Because it's racially insensitive.
All right. So he was suspended for being racially insensitive. We'll start with you, Jake. Those are that's a very accurate overview of the comments that Tim Ryan made.
Well, I don't think, even if I know Sherman also said they meant the sleeve color because the whole team was wearing sleeves. I don't think he meant that. And even if he did mean that, you can't word something that way today. It's going to get misconstrued regardless of what he meant, if he meant it as skin tone or not. He had to avoid it, and I mean, yeah, that he should expect to be suspended for that, even if he meant it or not, in that way.
And Rick, what is your take on this?
Well, I think the suspension was deserved. The wording should have been done a little bit differently, or he should have tried to explain what was going on. But anymore with the instant media anymore, I mean, you can't say anything, look anywhere, or do anything without being in the public eye, whether you were expecting it or not. It's just Big Brother's watching 24/7 anymore. So you just have to be a little bit more cautious about what you say and who you say it to.
Can I respond to Doggy Bones real quick?
Sure.
Doggy Bones, once upon a time, all night games were played with a white football. especially the televised games, because on a black and white television, you could not pick up the brown football at all on camera. So there you go. They once upon a time they did.
Yeah. Here's my take on this, because I never like to get into what somebody meant, what the implications of what somebody said. I'd rather Tim Ryan explain for himself, what his intentions were. But here's what I will say about this, and it's the thing about the comment that bothered me personally. I remember when Larry Bird came into the NBA, and I remember Michael Jordan early on in his career in the NBA. And, I think that there were people who said, well, with Michael Jordan, it's raw talent. And with Larry Bird, it's pure work ethic. As if somehow Michael Jordan hadn't worked at his game. And, I can tell you I'll tell you who the hardest worker in the history of the game was, although it was only in one facet of his game. That was Kobe Bryant. I mean, Kobe Bryant was a beast when it came to, just the sheer effort that he put into practicing and staying.
The ISO mid-range game was unguardable.
That's right.
ISO mid-range unguardable.
Absolutely, in great physical condition. The problem that black quarterbacks have is the rap of they're athletic, but they can't really think through the pro game. They're really big in college because they use those athletic skills that they have, but that they don't really apply that when it comes down to progressions and reads. The notion that African Americans are naturally more athletic or naturally more rhythmic or naturally dance better, or any of the number of things that get said, diminishes what people accomplish. And, I'm not a Baltimore Ravens fan. I honestly totally whiffed on Lamar Jackson coming out of college. I thought that coming from a system in Louisville like he did, that he would not wind up being one of those pocket passing NFL quarterbacks, because the system that he was run in relied on him so much to use his legs. He's proven to be able to do a whole host of things. The only question then, all of us have the question, is how long is he going to remain healthy, putting himself in the line of fire? But when somebody like Tim Ryan makes a comment that his sleight of hand in play action is attributable to the color of his skin and the difficulty of picking up what he's doing with the sleight of hand with the ball, it diminishes what that player has accomplished in my mind. And it isn't a question of racial dignity. It's a question of just acknowledging instead of making excuses. You lost to the Ravens, you lost to the Ravens. We're going to play them one more time and we're going to lose to the Ravens. I mean, that's the way it works. He's led them to become the strongest team in the East. And they're getting stronger. And, I don't care if he's wearing a black jersey, if he's wearing a purple jersey. I don't care. I don't think that what he's accomplishing is a fluke. I don't think that there is anything that is camouflaged because of uniform color, skin color, or any number of things. I don't think that anybody would have had the intelligence to be able to figure that out before the fact, if that's in fact what the story is. I think that what he does is that he runs in an offensive system that NFL players do not see. And the second you bite the wrong way, he's gone. He's that fast. And we've seen it over and over when we played them and when other teams have played them, that just like in the zone read where, where the 49ers are so effective, that defensive end is the read on the play. What the defensive end does is going to dictate whether the ball gets handed off, whether the quarterback will keep the football. And in a zone read offense, if somebody is too hasty and commits too quickly, it leaves an alley or a lane wide open. Why do you think that the 49ers are successful with Shanahan? Why has Shanahan been successful everywhere he's gone with a running game? How did he make Isaiah Crowell into an 1,000-plus yard running back when Isaiah Crowell couldn't even play for anybody else? And the answer is deception.
And it's the running scheme that his father came up with in Denver.
Right. And there is definitely deception involved in this. Make no mistake about it. It's designed to read off of one player and to put teams in an imbalanced situation where one man has to account for two players. It's really just a mathematical thing. And the league isn't cracking down on defending this for a couple of reasons. The predominant reason is they may not play the 49ers for 3 or 4 or 5 years. That's the first reason. And you're not going to see it from anybody else. So when people see it for the first time, it really is difficult. And it puts a guy who may not be the most athletic guy in the field forced to stop on a dime and make a quick decision. And when you're dealing with somebody who's 4.2 speed, like Lamar Jackson, one critical error results in a big, big play. It gets him into the open field, and he becomes, Eric Metcalf on a punt return. He just becomes a guy who, you just can't bring him to the ground. He's like a greased pig, quite literally. I mean, spinning and darting and changing directions. Tim Ryan gets suspended. He gets suspended now. I mean, he just said something stupid, in my opinion. And I don't care what the racial overtones of the thing are. What he said was stupid because the entire offense that the Ravens run is predicated on deception. And you knew that going into the game, and the 49ers didn't account for it any better than other teams have. So there you have my take on this. And I don't think it's anything more complicated than that. So.
And just as a side note or final note, Lamar Jackson did end the game with like 101 yards rushing and 100 yards passing. So,
right. I mean,
yeah, give him credit for making the right read too. You have to make the right choice and read the right two players on those situations.
Yeah. Well,
if you ignore the offensive line, which is predicated on going with Mark Ingram. If you ignore Mark Ingram and you play him, then Mark Ingram gets a 20-yard run instead of 9 to 11, 13 yards.
Yeah. The only thing I see that could slow this offense down is if they just say Lamar can maybe beat us in the first 2.5 quarters. We're going to play the running back and always try to hit Lamar when he runs the ball.
You have to do what the Browns did, which was win the turnover battle.
Yeah.
And that's going to force. You have to force him to throw the ball. You got to get ahead of them first. The whole trick.
They don't play from behind well. Yeah. Well, they're never behind, so you don't know how well they play from behind after.
You got to try to eliminate the running game and force Lamar to become a passing quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, again, take them out of their scheme in essence. And I don't know any quarterback, and this includes Roethlisberger trying to throw 50 times or Baker Mayfield trying to throw 50 times. When you reduce somebody into a one-dimensional player, it makes that player much easier to contain, and it makes your defense much more balanced and able to predict what the other team's going to do. So that's kind of how I see it. I want to start out the Browns portion of this whole thing by explaining to everybody that the Browns-Bengals game means nothing to me at all. All right, nothing at all. I don't care about it. If I didn't do this program, I wouldn't watch it. I have lost interest in the Cleveland Browns because it is like being beaten down. It's just being beaten down. And regardless of what your, if you felt that Barack Obama and his system in the White House beat you down, if you feel that Donald Trump and the Congress or whatever beats you down, there comes a point where I think you just kind of say, you know something, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to enjoy myself, and, I'm just going to stop with this nonsense because it just beats the shit out of you, and you can't change it. I refer today to Freddie Kitchens talking in his Friday press conference. All I need to do is take out one thing, and that's all I need to hear. The first question after Freddie says it was a good week of preparation, I think our guys are focused, good enthusiasm, good energy, I think we are ready to play. First question, will David Njoku be activated Sunday? Freddie's answer, we will see how it goes Saturday and Sunday. On the determining factor for Njoku to be activated, answer, just discussions. On if Njoku is healthy, yeah, he's healthy and ready to go. He's healthy. Now, all I want to say is this. As long as this guy is the head coach, I don't care. I don't care anymore because there's nothing objective about what he's saying. It is all subjective in his own little limited brain. If the man is healthy, why isn't he playing when we don't really have a tight end who's worth a shit? When the biggest problem that we're having right now is scoring points, when we're having trouble in the red zone because we don't have a tall target except Demetrius Harris who can't catch the football. Somebody had explained to me, like I'm a 4-year-old, why you would not play a guy who opens up the passing game and would give your other receivers, including Rashard Higgins, God forbid, an opportunity to see the football. Not to mention OBJ and Jarvis Landry. And why are you allowed to stand in front of the press and give answers like this and bring the entire locker room down? Bring the entire offensive line down, knowing that your best players are not playing. Does anybody have an answer for me on this?
I think part of it's the let's play the cutesy shell game with who's going to play. Maybe they're going to be on the 46 and try and play head games with the other coaching staff. And it's like, it doesn't fucking matter. You're going up against a top 5. I think they're 3rd in red zone efficiency as far as keeping teams out of the end zone. They lost to the Steelers because of a long pass play, not because of they drove it right down and got rushing touchdowns or got easy passing 6-yard touchdowns. That's not how they lost. So to dick around like this, it goes back to the fucking let's call trick plays, and then when they become a Disasterville, chuckle on the sideline. I didn't call that. Well, you damn sure did call that. And
I would agree with you, Brian, except for one thing. Whenever this bullshit begins in the press conferences, he doesn't play the player. Guy's healthy, that it's Tamarius Randall who did something that bothered him. Guy's healthy, he scratches him. The player says, I'm healthy. And he scratches him for 2 more weeks. Rashard Higgins. Mm-hmm. Once this shit starts, the guy doesn't play until he gets down on his knees. That would appear to be what this whole thing's all about. The team's not winning. Jake, do you see this differently?
here's what I fear. Everybody wanted Patricia gone last year, right? From the Lions. He was trying to build his culture, did something very similar to right now. What is whatever Kitchen is doing? I fear that Dorsey might be giving him a year to build his culture and might want to bring him back regardless. I really am, because there's no reason to allow this to happen unless you want him to find his guys, his players, his mentality. And I really fear that might be the case right now.
Well, his mentality would be Forrest Gump. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, and establishing the culture while he does what?
Where's the stupid shirt?
Well, I mean, you know what it is? I'll tell you the other thing that was sad, because the press knows that this guy is inept. Everybody knows that he's inept. He says, well, they asked him, you know, on the most surprising or challenging aspect about being a head coach, now that he's 3/4 of the way through his first year. Freddie's answer, I do not know. I will reserve the right to answer that. So they re-ask it. On if he would prefer to answer the question at another time. Yeah, ask me again. But then Freddie couldn't keep his mouth shut. He says, just you are never off. You are always on. That would be it, probably. On if always being on is different from being an assistant coach. Yeah, I think so. I think there's always something to deal with. It can be on the field, off the field, it could be anything. There's always something to deal with. I always heard that, but did not understand the magnitude until now, or during the course of the year, and not just during the season and the off season as well. It is just in general, you're always dealing with something. Well, you know, if you're so stupid that you don't know that being a head coach carries more visibility and accountability and responsibility than being an assistant coach, then you're just a dumb fuck with a little dick. I don't understand what else I can say about this except to say that if the issue is that he's having trouble dealing with is always being on, or in other words, being noticed, but then you come back and say, well, I'd wear that shirt again. I'd do it again. And then you come back into the press conference the next week and say, that's the problem, man. I'm always being watched. And then you turn around and do something stupid again. It's the guy is not fit. Not fit to be a head coach. Brian?
No, I really don't. The job is definitely too big for him. The job is definitely too big for him because you can't keep fucking screwing up on the field and then, I got to coach better. Well, you should. You've been saying that for the last 3 weeks. When are you going to decide to start coaching better? You already cost the game in fucking Denver. You could have kicked 2 field goals and at least had 6 wins already.
All right, Rick, I mean, what am I missing here?
Nothing much. He pretty much, whatever Freddie does in the first half, count on the same thing in the second half because he is the master of not making a damn halftime adjustment to save his soul.
Except to give the ball to the running backs less than a one-score game.
Yeah. Or else maybe we need to throw a shovel pass in the second half.
You know,
it's like the before picture of a Burma Shave commercial, for crying out loud.
Here's a headline that I mean, it just kills me. The Browns were outscored 10-3 by the Steelers in the second half. Why does Cleveland struggle closing games? Now, look. I mean, you know something? This isn't a matter of black skin deception and play action passes, folks. This is a matter of an idiot being our head coach. The reason we're not outscoring people in the second half is because we're being out-strategized because it isn't hard to solve an algebra equation faster than Forrest Gump. Okay? Doesn't take much to outcoach him. And the only thing we seem to be at least quasi-decent at is the first time we get the ball or two, the first scripted plays. And after that, once adjustments are made, everything goes to hell in a handbasket because we have a guy on the sideline who doesn't know how to use timeouts, doesn't know how to use players, and who is just lost as far as the art of head coaching. The reason that we're outscored consistently in the second half, the reason we're not getting the ball into the end zone and the red zone is not because of Baker Mayfield, folks. It's because the wrong people are on the field. It's because the wrong guy's coaching and putting the wrong people on the field. And it's because this team didn't have any trouble doing that last year because Freddie wasn't making the decisions on which players played. He was only selecting plays like somebody would pick an entree from a menu. He knows enough to know what his favorite food is, but that's about all he knows. So, again, the press is questioning. So I'll go back the other direction now and start with Rick this time. Why? Why are we being outmaneuvered in these games?
I don't think Freddie's a forward thinker. He just, he doesn't make adjustments. He doesn't do anything to change things or, rearrange something. He just, stays with the status quo. And the fact that, they gave him the play calling duties, or he decided to take them, I think he just has too much on his plate and he's not really sure what's going on. I think it would have been a lot better if Monken had done the play calling and just let Freddie be a coach. I think he started in way over his head. But the fact that he beat Pittsburgh and Baltimore in the same year, some people think that, Dorsey might give him a mulligan. He may wind up coaching again next year.
Only if they have a winning record in the division. They
They
have to match the 4-2 record in the division.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, I mean, obviously, we don't put games away. Why?
We fall in love with the 5 wide set earlier in the season, and now, we go away. Kareem Hunt had almost 7 yards of carry against the Steelers, and he doesn't touch the ball at all in the second half.
Right.
Nick Chubb only gets 15 carries. You can't win when you have idiot play calls in the red zone and you have offensive penalties in the red zone, taking you out of field goal range, taking you, your 4th and goal is now from the 17 or 18 yard line, or 3rd and goal is from the 17 or 18 yard line. Well, the defense is going to kill you. Baker's going to force the ball into tight coverage, or his first read has to be Demetrius Harris, who's 9 feet tall and cement hands. So a lot of it comes down to scheme and play calling and personnel groupings.
All right, Jake. It seems like all of these games, there are moments in which what looks like we've got the team on the ropes and we never land that haymaker. Why?
Every functional team I see, even the Patriots, the person calling the plays is with the quarterback at all times. The coordinator, quarterback coach are with the receivers talking on the sideline between drives, the defensive guys calling the plays, and Belichick might step in for halftime stuff, post-halftime, maybe a struggle drive. But if you're an offensive coordinator or play caller, you have to constantly talk to the quarterback, not watch the defense on the field. Somebody has to be in Baker's ear the entire time who is in charge of calling the plays and know what Baker likes. It looks like Monken is talking to Baker and Kittens is still calling the plays despite not talking to Monken. And that's a huge issue.
I guess it comes down to this. I've had a lot of people work for me through the years. Some of them I think are just the greatest people in the world. Some of them were really good employees, not necessarily my favorite people, but they really did a good job. Okay? I mean, we can't find favor in every person any more than the people who work for me. You know, some people thought, hey, I was a great boss. There were other people who said, well, the stations are successful, I'm doing well, and his attitude is a little funny. You know, he goes about things in a kind of strange way. He's walking around with his dog in the office. You know, not everybody is cut out to be your favorite person. But in order, you know, this is the definition of a team. To me, the definition of a team is that you rise together or you go down together, but it's together. And even if it's not for great love of one another, but for a common cause, this is what brings teams together. I should go, brings teams together, okay?
Start singing Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Good night, Saigon.
We would all go down together.
Or Let's Stay Together by Al Green. And, you know, here's the deal. From my perspective, I look at this and I say, you know, Freddie's playing his favorites. He's not, you know, dealing with the challenge of dealing with people, you know? And if you can't win the challenge of managing people and finding your commonalities for the system that you run with those people, you're never going to be a head coach. Now, some people are fortunate, you know? I mean, I'm sure if Bill Belichick or if Nick Saban or people who are entrenched in their positions put their foot down, players have to do whatever the fucking coach tells them. But I guarantee you that when Bill Belichick was with the Cleveland Browns and he basically shit all over Bernie Kosar publicly, and he didn't need to do it that way. He was just a mean-spirited little secretary fucking prick at the time. He was not a great, successful head coach. And, you know, I think Bill grew into, because of Tom Brady, a guy who was able to sledgehammer his way through. And is Nick Saban a good coach? I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. But you cross the line sometimes between, you know, you're a man, you're a legend where you are. And, you know, when recruits come to Alabama, their parents say to them, you do what Mr. Saban tells you to do. Because look at these guys dotting the NFL who came from this program, and you could be the next one. You do as you're told. So players who don't do what Nick Saban or Bill Belichick or whatever tells them to do, don't play. All right, I get that. But Freddie Kitchens is not a legend, and Freddie Kitchens is not Nick Saban and Bill Belichick. He doesn't have a winning history, and for him to be doing this is absolutely stupid.
Or even the tuna.
Right. I mean, it's unfortunate that this guy has fractured the team unity to the point where we don't have the confidence to put our foot down when people are on the ropes, and that we always look like we're pressing on the field. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like we're always pressing. So, you know, hi, Toby, by the way. Thanks for joining us again. I guess that's the way I look at it, is you're never going to bring a team together because a team is all disparate parts. That's what it is. And it's hard, you know, when your general manager brings OBJ in, you got to know that, you know, in the intergalactic planetary sense, I mean, he's the sun, okay? Even if you don't think he is, he thinks he is. He's the center of the universe. Now, you know when you get him that that's the way he is, you got to have a head coach who's got some nuance, some finesse, who can get the most out of him and still make him feel good. But ignoring him in past patterns certainly doesn't work. You know, and throwing the ball to Demetrius Harris in the red zone doesn't help. calling plays that just have him running down the field as a decoy doesn't help. You just got to know how to put people together. And he just doesn't know how to do it. And watching the Bengals and the Browns, I mean, it should be Custer and the Indians. But the Indians would have fucked up. Custer would have kicked their ass if Freddie Kitchens was Chief Freddie Kitchens. So the bottom line is that we shouldn't even have to talk about this game. This game should be a win on our home turf by snapping our fingers. But nothing is a finger snap with this ass clown. Nothing. So, and I see somebody else is joining us. It looks like Bronk. Hi, Bronk. How you doing, buddy?
Moo. Well, I'm pleased to report that the BCOD doesn't appear to have killed anybody in America anyway. It killed a major sports star over here in England, but that don't count. So
no, and that's ominous.
Yeah,
because
it could be saving it up.
Yeah, I mean, he appeared on Monday. He has until Monday to kill somebody, and if he doesn't, I'm not going to question him, because what he'll do is double down and kill twice as many people.
Okay, can we count Ron Rivera losing his job as a part of that? And I took a lot of grief in some public forums suggesting that Ron Rivera would be an upgrade to Freddie Kitchens. I mean, people actually questioned that assessment, and I found that like unbelievably stupid that people would question that. Have we talked about that yet today?
No, and Ron Rivera was an underachiever in Carolina. I mean, the problem with Ron Rivera is he's Lovie Smith. He's a defensive coordinator, all right? He's a guy who, again, will really want to, push for defense and keeping scores down low. And we've got Jarvis Landry and OBJ for now, and it would be stupid to hire a coach who you can't keep flip-flopping back and forth trying to determine what it is you're going to be. Would he be an upgrade over Freddie Kitchens? He's won more games than Freddie Kitchens, but overall, if you'll take a look at his records year in, year out, they're not much different than Freddie Kitchens. And you can say, well, it was Cam Newton, didn't really develop and this and that, but it was more than that. I think Rivera fucked up a lot of games, and I think strategically he's very simplistic. I don't want him for my head coach.
Well, who else
and
is out there?
He's another one that goes for it
He's an upgrade.
on 4th and short.
Oh, yeah, the Riverboat Ron nickname bullshit that he's got. I just think he's a hell of a lot more experienced. He's probably mates with Dorsey. And, Kitchens has got to be the worst of the 32 head coaches in the league. Is there anybody who you would say is worse than freaking Pat Shermer? Anyone?
Well, no, I mean, but
the Cowboys play last night.
Yeah. I mean, Jason Garrett would be another, and and now that the name came up, I mean, and it's not like, again, I know this is a Cleveland Browns oriented program, Northeast Ohio Sports Talk. Jerry Jones, after another ridiculous performance, losing to the Bears and making Trubisky look like he was Lamar Jackson, honest to God. That play where he scrambled up the middle. I mean, I'm just sitting there going, no. Guy from Mentor can't do that. Where is the defense? Where is the whole fucking team? Dallas is 6-7, all right? Jerry Jones had his post-game radio interview, and they had to cut him off the air because he kept swearing.
Wow.
Get this. The interview after the game got off to a rocky start, with Jones telling the host of the program to get your damn act together and saying he didn't like their attitude. And this is a completely different type of entitlement. I mean, Jones can sit there because he's wealthy. He was in the oil business. He's won Super Bowls. He has a pump for his penis so that when he's old, it still gets quasi-hard. He has all kinds of things, and he can talk to the lower minions and the peons that, I don't like your attitude. Well, the reason their attitude is the way it is, they're watching your team do the same shit every fucking year, which is dry up and blow away in the wind in December. It's been happening ever since God knows how long with this franchise. They're a laughing stock. They're a bigger laughing stock than the Cleveland Browns, because over the course of time, this guy's bloated, inflated ego has just, and he refuses to get rid of a head coach who clearly, everybody wanted to anoint Dak Prescott, all right? And again, how much of it is Dak Prescott? How much of it is Jason Garrett? I don't think we'll ever know that. But Jones twice used the word bullshit during the course of the call, and he was disconnected. And when he came back on the air, he said it may not help to move on from Jason Garrett at this time. Here's the greatest quote. No, this is the single greatest quote that I can give you. And it is everything that's wrong. You've got to remember that when you quit on your coach, Jones said, then you quit on yourself, because we're all a part of this. I mean, are you fucking kidding me?
Wow.
That's almost as bad as saying, quitters quit.
Oh, we went to Garrett.
But what's remarkable about it is what he's saying is, I'm not going to admit I'm wrong. I'm not going to quit on myself. I said this guy was the goddamn coach, and goddamn it, I'll beat it into your fucking heads until it becomes so. And it's not so. It never will be so. So this is what we end up with. Him saying as a defense that I am the owner. I am the head coach, said Huey and said Freddie. I. Or, to quote Phil Elliott from North Dallas 40, BA, we're not the team, they're the team. And he points to the two owners of the Dallas franchise. They're the team. Old white men living vicariously through what young, strong men do on a football field. That's what we're dealing with. And people in Dallas, I guess y'all got to get used to it, because that's just, you're not going to wrest that team away from Jerry Jones. You're not going to do it.
Yep. And it also can't help that whenever they have a chance, you see Jimmy Johnson and Aikman take shots at Jerry Jones and the Cowboys culture.
I'm being asked a question by Doggy Bones. What would Joe Banner say? Here we go. His name's been invoked.
Wow.
All right, wait. This has been a long time, folks.
Old school. Can you still do it?
Let me just. There's something smelling here. This is Joe Banner. There was the unsinkable Molly Brown, and there was me. I got off of that brown ship so I can speak to you today. What is that? I just want to say that the Cleveland Browns organization, I've gotten a big whiff of it, and it's not pleasurable. It's kind of like going down on your girlfriend right after a taco value meal. Doesn't pass the nose test. It's been a long time since somebody actually invoked the name of Joe Banner. The problem is when I do that, my face gets stuck like that sometimes for a couple hours.
Sinuses build up too, probably.
What's even better is, my face gets stuck like that for like 2 or 3 hours. I go to the mall and people are saying, "Hey, look, it's Joe Banner." It's like,
Terrible.
it's all fucking wrong, man, for so many reasons. It's you got And there's another thing, there's that little piece of indistinguishable audio where Garoppolo is talking to OBJ, and the implication is that OBJ is trying to work out a way to get to San Francisco, right? What I can tell you is this: it should be enough for the NFL to see the Browns out of the playoffs and to see them fail, because God only knows that's what they wanted from the get-go. But to continue, it's like now, it was like the NBA. They wanted LeBron away from Cleveland,
Oh, we got to go to New York or LA. We
no,
got to save our major markets.
the first time he had to go to Miami, all right, and that's the one thing he has in common with a Jewish American princess. I want to go to Miami. Yeah.
That's your favorite wine.
I'm going to take my oral talent. Wait a minute. Madge, I dropped my nail file. I guess I came.
Wow.
Yeah, fucking Jewish American princess, folks. So they wanted him to leave. They want OBJ to leave Cleveland. It's never enough.
Yeah.
There's never enough humiliation for the organization. Now the NFL is starting its own campaign to get OBJ to at least go someplace where he's more marketable for the league.
That's what I thought was going on, too. They want to get rid of OBJ out of Cleveland because he's not a big enough star there.
Yeah, I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, but I really think that his comments on Twitter and in the press conference have more to do with the fact that he's just watched two guys that have done something for the team, or at least for Deborah Lawrence, and then in Chris Smith's case, we're gonna wrap our arms around you, and we're always gonna back you up. Yeah, you're out of here, kid.
Hey, no matter how bad he
cannot sit there and say legitimately, yeah, I'm going to be in Cleveland for the next 4 years, because he could get fucking traded on February 2nd.
Hey, no matter how bad a year people have had, you can't have as bad a year as Chris Smith. Fucking gets his girlfriend killed in some horrific car accident that wasn't even remotely his or her fault. And then he gets cut by the team that was going to look after him. Jesus Christ,
Yeah, it's a harsh reality. And by the way, Jeff Bach, couldn't you see Joe Banner as the toucan in the Fruit Loops commercial?
Wow, that's old school.
Follow your nose. The nose knows. The flavor of fruit, wherever it goes. Follow your snoot.
He actually sounds more like the, or at least your version sounds more like the owl for the eyeglass company.
Yeah, that may be the case, but it's the whole shit sniffing scenario. I think Toby. Yeah, I mean, you're short on defensive linemen, and you just make that decision so you can bring in another guy off the practice squad. It's like you talk about a bad look. It's.
Chris Smith will end up being on some ESPN 30 for 30. If he goes on to another team and has a bit of success, he'll be a hero somewhere else.
Yeah, and the thing is that Bradley Zimmer can't even get healthy enough to play for the Indians.
Yeah, he needs a Zimmer frame just to fucking walk.
No, Kawaki, I know what you're referring to.
Or we're going to dig up Don Zimmer.
Oh my God, Zim!
Or fucking Robert.
We're going to get Popeye to go play right tackle.
You know what I wanted? When Kirk Gibson hit the home run and Tommy Lasorda came running out of the dugout, I wanted to see a foot race between Zim and Lasorda. That would have been the most, not the hot dog and a hamburger, or the taco or whatever in the race.
The presidents.
Yeah, chariots of fire.
Chariots of fire, yep.
Yeah,
Or Ricky Bobby
unbelievable.
at the end of the movie, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got a visual impression for everyone.
Yep.
It's, this is Freddie Kitchens on TV calling plays.
Do you know why? It's bifocals. He it's like he doesn't understand how they work. It's like,
You can literally read him occasionally saying the X and the Y. It's pretty ridiculous. Like he says the X, Y, and the route, and it's like, well, if somebody was paying attention and wanted to cheat, they easily could.
all right. Here's a question from Toby. Fair question.
Toby.
Let's start with Bronk. Yeah. What inspired you or made you a Browns fan, and where are you guys from?
Well, I grew up 5 miles from the old municipal stadium, and I was a Cleveland Browns fan in 1965. And there's an old record, and you can find it on YouTube, called One Game at a Time, in which Gib Shanley and Jim Grainer go through the 1965 radio calls for that momentous season. I don't remember, I was too young to remember the 64 championship game, but I remember that 1965 record album and playing it a lot. My older brother went to that Pittsburgh night game that actually is on the record as well. But I never went to a Browns game because my parents and my brother had a bad experience at that game with a drunken fan and decided not to go to Browns games for like another 5, 6, 7 years after that.
My mom could back that shit up because she used to say that the Steelers fans were drunk as skunks when they fell out of the fucking train cars to walk to the stadium.
Well, I don't know whether it was Steeler fans or Browns fans, to be fair, but they wouldn't go back. But taking my older brother, which would have been like 10 at the time, to a night Steelers game probably wasn't the best idea even in the 60s. It certainly wouldn't be a good idea now.
All right, Rick, how did you become a Browns fan? Where are you from?
From Bellevue, Ohio. We still live there. Became a Browns fan, well, as a kid, just watching the games with my dad. I vaguely remember the 64 championship game. And I remember as a kid collecting football cards and trying to collect as many Cleveland Browns football cards as I possibly could. So, and then just became an overall Cleveland fan from that point forward. Always cheered on the Indians and, now the Cavaliers, grim though it may be.
And I can tell you when the Cleveland Browns died. When they died was when they traded Paul Warfield for Mike Phipps. And they haven't really recovered from that. It was like 1972, 71. Anyway, I ended up sitting in front of Mike Phipps at a Cleveland Barons ice hockey game when I was like 12 years old, and I got his autograph. But yeah, that's when the Browns died, and we have not recovered since then.
Yeah. I always remember whenever we played the Denver Broncos, Dad referred to Elway as Mr. Ed.
Hey, I want to respond something real quick here to Fleet. Hey, Fleet, how you doing? And I really like Fleet Barnes. It's not hater talk, okay? It's the only question that I have left, and I was totally wrong. Again, and I'll talk again, I've apologized to Brandon Howard because he and I had a discussion going into the NFL draft, and I said, no. Lamar Jackson, no. And he was right, and I was wrong. As far as having a long career, it is totally possible that he could have a brilliantly long career, and he's proving to me that he has more pocket skills than I thought that he had. But in the short term, with his development where it is, he's playing in a system where he relies very heavily on his legs. And if something were to happen And I've said this before, and I wish you'd listen to the show more, Fleet, is that it happened to Gale Sayers not when somebody hit him, but just a cut on the wrong field at the wrong time. You hit a divot in a field, whatever the case is, and your knee blows out, and you're never going to be that 4.2 guy again. Then you have to adapt. The Randall Cunninghams started out one way, and they had to adapt to being pocket passers. And guys like Steve McNair, who I know had a tremendous amount of physical strength because of his size, was not Lamar Jackson, okay? And Donovan McNabb was not that athletic either and not that elusive. Dante Culpepper was, again, a lot like Steve McNair, built like a tank, and he could take a pounding. You're picking some pretty big-sized quarterbacks, and Cam Newton would be another one who was considered very athletic, and he was going to beat you with his legs, and he's had a series of injuries. The question is adaptability. And the adaptability has, as the Cleveland Browns fans unfortunately know, has a lot to do with what the coaches decide and what offensive scheme gets implemented if a guy like Lamar Jackson were to suffer some kind of a leg injury and then come back from it, and that they would have to maybe focus in on other parts of his games rather than just putting him back into a perpetual zone read situation. So don't read more into this than what there is, Fleet, because the fact is I'm a fan of Lamar Jackson. I think he's a great football player, but I've just seen too many times the guys come into the league, and again, I have never, ever in my life seen a quarterback who has that open field capacity, the incredible shifting of the gears that gets him up to speed so quickly. I mean, guys like Eric Metcalf, when he was a punt returner for the Browns, had that burst. This guy's got the burst, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth gear. And he's got the moves of a Maserati, of a Ferrari. The guy, has enormous evasive qualities. I'm just suggesting that it would require a change in offensive scheme and adaptation by Lamar Jackson to overcome that kind of injury. Hope you understand what I'm saying. Brian?
The other thing, piggybacking on yours, is, the Ravens also have to make sure that they keep at least two very, very talented tight ends on their team throughout an entire season, because those Mark Andrews and I forget the other Boyle, something like that. They're the primary targets. They're the primary red zone targets. They're the primary second and third down targets. So he's got two outstanding tight ends to bail him out. Willie Snead is not going to lead that team in receptions.
No. Right now, he's still a young quarterback, and there's still growth to be had. The question to me, and it's always that question, is how will that growth be realized? And sometimes it takes an injury for a quarterback to be able to settle down in the pocket more and be able to do certain things. And I've seen nothing in Lamar Jackson that would tell me that he can't do it. The real issue is the scheme that he's playing in. And Brian, by the way, what made you a Browns fan? Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Illinois. My dad was raised in Cleveland. He was 7 years old when the Browns came into existence. So he literally grew up as a Browns fan, watching Paul Brown and watching Otto Graham and Marion Motley and on and on and on. So, and he was actually at the 1964 championship game. He took my uncle from Iowa, who had never been to a professional football game, and as they were leaving the stadium, stuck in the log jam, my uncle got pissed off and got out of the car and started climbing over every single fucking car, trunk to hood. And if anybody ducked their head out and said, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" He said,
Mind your own fucking business.
And my this particular uncle was a Navy frogman, so he could definitely handle himself in a fist fight.
All right, Jake, how would you become a Browns fan? Where are you from?
I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, and I really just had no choice. My dad never liked the Steelers. It's kind of split right on the state line. And my dad liked the Browns when they were good. And then they left and they came back and obviously aren't as good, but he just was a front runner when he was younger, really. And then when they stopped beating Pittsburgh when they came back, it's one of those things where we're just kind of stuck with it now. I don't regret it, though. I mean, all the great things about the Browns are before I was alive, so hopefully they bring him back. But yeah, I mean, I really had no choice. I just kind of, when they brought him back in '99, everyone was excited in the family, and then didn't work out, but I won't change. I'm loyal.
And as for me, from the time I was 8 years old in 1965, my father, initially in his business career, owned beauty salons. It's an interesting career. But one thing that he did is he always did my mother's hair. My mom was a school teacher, an art teacher in the Canton High School, city high school system. Every Sunday, he would do her hair at Trim Tresses Salon at the location, the initial locations of, if you're from Canton, I'll give you an idea. His first shop, the Trim Tresses shop, was located at 30th and Market, right next to the College Bowl bowling alley, and which none of this probably even exists anymore. And the other was the Hills and Dales shop that was over on Hills and Dales Road, right where Fulton merged with Hills and Dales, and right next door to the Dairy Queen Brazier Burger that was later to go in there in that part of Canton, Ohio. And I would come with them because they wouldn't leave me at home alone. And I would sit, and the Browns games were playing on the radio. And that's how I became a Browns fan growing up in Canton, Ohio. And all of us have, we're undeniable in our zeal for our team, but we're also realistic about the fact that when things aren't going right, they're not going right at all. I wanted to end the program today. I mean, you can pick the games if you want. Let's do it real quick. Bronk, your score?
Cincinnati 16, Cleveland 9.
All right, Rick?
Cleveland 31, Cincinnati 20. Our march to mediocrity continues.
Okay, Brian?
Bengals 19, Browns 16.
Jake?
I think they'll actually win 2017. The Browns will win close and in a very disappointing way.
And I'm going 27-16 Browns in a game that doesn't really matter. The way I wanted to end up the show is I think I talk about boxing a lot kind of as a side note to things that I talk about regarding Northeast Ohio sports. When things are predetermined by a league, and if you don't believe me, just watch the LeBron James traveling at midcourt that wasn't called. I mean, there comes a point where, it's like enough is enough. He's walking his fucking dog, for God's sakes, all right? And yes,
it's so funny.
He's the greatest player who's ever played the game, but they're 18-3 because they're getting a helping hand from the league. One of the most exciting things in the world of boxing is a stunning upset, with the Buster Douglas over Mike Tyson kind of thing. And Andy Ruiz, when he knocked out Anthony Joshua, was something that A, wasn't supposed to happen, and B, was kind of fun to watch. But there's something in boxing that happens, and it's called the quick rematch. The quick rematch is invoked by the sanctioning organizations that realize that something went terribly wrong, and that Andy Ruiz is not the future of the heavyweight division, and we got to get Anthony Joshua back in the picture. It was that Anthony Joshua was lazy, didn't train. We're going to come up with 14 different excuses, but we're going to make sure that that happens by fixing the fight in a completely different way. In the first fight, Ruiz, who is naturally way too heavy anyway, came in at 268 pounds. They wanted him in the 250s for this fight. And he didn't make the 250s because he was 283.7 pounds.
He was morbidly obese, dude.
They had to. I mean, that's way heavier than I am, folks.
And is he really 6'3"?
He's not 6'3", no.
They list him at 6'2" and a half, 6'3". I'm like, he can't be that tall. Or
No.
Joshua's 6'10" or something.
Right. No. Joshua's, I think, probably about 6'6", like Lennox Lewis was.
He's very. I've seen Joshua live in the flesh. He's about 6'5".
He's a big guy. But I mean,
So,
no, Andy Ruiz
might be
no.
5'11", 6 foot at most.
That's right, and that's what I am, 5'11".
6'3" if you count the sombrero.
So it goes like this. Joshua's in at the lightweight of 237 and is ready to murder this guy. And Andy Ruiz comes in with a hamburger munching 283.7 pounds. Why in the world should anybody
burrito.
Yep. Why should... he ate members of the mariachi band that escorted him into the ring. I mean, for God's sakes. I mean,
Spitting guitar strings out of his mouth, for God's.
If they would have held the fight like they did the Tyson Buster Douglas fight in Japan, the people would be going, "Oh, Godzilla!" It's like this guy, 283 pounds. I mean, is this the best thing we can do? Is this the best the sport can do? And and so when Anthony Joshua knocks him out, and everyone's going to say, "Oh, the world is all correct, and this is the way it was meant to be." Don't believe it for a minute, If you believe,
English, they're charging an ungodly amount of money to see this fight, and they're making it as accessible as possible over here because he is the British hope. I saw him box live in the Olympics. And the thing about Anthony Joshua, you got to remember, is that he was not a boxer as a kid. He picked up boxing because he happened to have a friend who was boxing and took him around to the gym one day when he was like 18, 19 years old. He had only been boxing for like less than 2 years when he won the gold medal in 2012. So he's been boxing for less than 10 years total in his entire life. So he's very inexperienced still.
Well, and I will quote Michael Stipe and leave it at that. If you believe there's a man in the moon. If you believe there's nothing up their sleeve, then nothing is cool. And let me tell you, there's something up their sleeve, all right. And, as far as Andy Ruiz is concerned, the smartest thing he could do would be to put an advertisement on the bottom of his boxing shoes, so that when the camera zooms in, when he's flat on his big fat ass in the middle of the ring, that it will focus on goldenpalace.com. And he can sell out his soul to a casino and at least make something for his trouble.
He'll be a greeter the rest of his life in some Vegas, like the
An abomination. And this is what I don't like about professional sports. LeBron James doesn't need that much help. And there was one other thing I wanted to mention before I got out of here, and, this is one of these things that is just stupid. They're quoting statistics, and statistics, of course...
Why?
That's right. That's why statistics exist, all right? I mean, they were talking about Rajon Rondo, or Ray John Rondo, if you're going to be Tommy Heinsohn, And they're taking statistics, okay? And they're saying, when LeBron James and Ray John Rondo are on the court at the same time, and that's about when I stopped reading, because I've watched that little magpie-looking motherfucker screw every team he's played on the past 4 years.
The ugly fucker too. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. But listen to the. I mean, this is it. It's like, you know, I'm gonna look at. It says Rondo is dishing out 10.2 assists per 36 minutes. He's experimented, Frank Vogel, playing LeBron alongside Rondo. Okay, you know, and the numbers are, you know, are unbelievable with Rondo and LeBron on the floor. It's like, take LeBron off the floor and see what that little magpie-looking motherfucker does.
Exactly.
And the answer is the same thing he did in Sacramento, the same thing he did everywhere else he's played lately. He's a bricklayer. He can't shoot. He's selfish. He's got a bad attitude, and he argues with coaches. So,
Rondo.
that's that. All right, I'm finished. Thanks for tuning in. I do know this much. There's going to be no Friday show next week because I'm getting a tooth extracted on Thursday. All right?
Ah.
So there ain't no fucking way, okay? No, you know, there's two things I can guarantee you that I won't be doing Friday. The first one is sucking a dick, and the second one would be a podcast, all right? Now, whether my tooth, the problem with the extraction, is going to be better by Sunday, I don't know. But I will make that determination when the time comes. But I will be around for halftime of the Browns Bengals game and the post game.
Wow.
And so you'll get all the entertainment value, and then you'll see me. And the next time you see me, whatever it is, I'll have a hole right down, instead of right here, I'll have a hole right down there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again with you on Sunday at halftime. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.